Hi everybody, good to see you. I'm here with my daughter Sadie. Over the next few days I want to share a short video with you from each day looking back at the life of Christ and his ministry in between Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. So if you put the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, side by side, we can get a really good idea of what Christ did each day as he prepared for the cross and then his burial and then the resurrection. So today, Monday, there were several things which Christ did, and you can read about those, but I want to just highlight one of them, and that is when he went to the temple to teach. So let me give you a little background real quick. When people were going to the temple to worship, they had to bring with them two things. One was a temple offering, and the other was a sacrifice. The temple offering had to be given in Jewish currency, and this was a little bit complicated because remember, they were under Roman occupation, and so people were using Roman money. So they had to change their Roman money for Jewish money. They needed that shekel in order to pay this temple offering. But the second thing they had to do was give a sacrifice. And this was especially challenging for people who were traveling from a long distance because it would be hard to bring a live animal with them on their trip. And so instead what they would do is that when they got to the temple, they would buy an animal from a vendor and then offer that animal up as a sacrifice. So Christ comes to the temple while these two things are happening, and he has a pretty strong response. And so Sadie's going to read some verses for us this morning. She's going to start in Matthew chapter 21.
Then Jesus went to the temple of God and drove out all those who had bought and sold in the temple and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. And he said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of thieves."
So Christ's response here was very strong. We know that this is the second time he's had this response to these people who have set up shop outside of the temple, and it sounds like he really was he was upset at this because he saw that people were coming to worship, but while they were coming to worship, they were being taken advantage of, and people were charging exorbitant prices that were obviously unfair. Does that sound a little bit familiar to some modern day things? But when Christ, when he shows his emotion, he quotes two scriptures. One is from Isaiah and one is from Jeremiah. So Sadie, will you read the one from Isaiah 56?
Even them I will bring my holy mountain, and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations.
So really encouraging verse, because Christ says this temple, this is supposed to be a house of prayer. But then he adds to it, not only is it a place for prayer, but it's a place for all people from all nations to come and worship. And so just a wonderful example of how Christ was available for all people, and anyone who wants to worship him can come and worship him. And so he says, this place shall be called a house of prayer. And the language is very strong. In fact, that language comes from Jeremiah 7, where he said it should not be a den of thieves, meaning people were coming, and by charging these exorbitant rates, they were actually stealing from these other people. So the challenge for today is, are we continuing with this theme of our church being a house of prayer? There's a lot of stuff to pray for right now. I want to encourage us to pray for two things today. One is all of the leaders who are responsible to lead us through this. And as you've learned in your own lives, a person's decision about something can have huge impact on our schedule, on our work, on our school. And so we really need to be praying for our leaders as they just respond to this COVID-19 pandemic. And the second group of people I want us to encourage for, of course, a lot of talk has been going on about healthcare workers, and we definitely should be praying for healthcare workers. But over the weekend, I was reminded of another group of workers, and those are the people who are working in the grocery stores. I went to the store on Friday to pick up a few things, and I was just thinking as I passed some of those workers about how vulnerable they are. Because they are just, they're around a lot of people, just people coming in and out of that grocery store all day long. They're trying to keep the stocks, the shelves stocked, they're trying to keep everything there for us to buy, but at the same time, they're risking exposure themselves. And I know there's a lot of other groups of people, but I was just thinking about them this weekend. I would encourage us to pray for those in authority and pray for those who are serving us during this time, that God would protect them and allow them to continue to work. So tomorrow we'll pick this up and see what Jesus did on Tuesday of Holy Week. Have a great day.